You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is time for our bi-weekly Women's Hockey Spotlight, and that means we welcome back a familiar face to everybody, Erica L. Ayala. Erica, a very exciting time for women's hockey. We are this close to the start of the inaugural season of the PWHL, and there's some big news going on before the season even starts, a coaching change in Minnesota. Tell us all about it.
That's right. We are as many days away from the start of the PWHL as we are from the Winter Classic, which of course is top of mind for me as the host of Locked On Kraken. But yes, to your point, Gil, we did get our first coaching change before the season even started, and that is that the PWHL Minnesota team has announced that Ken Klee will take over as bench boss for Charlie Burggraf. In the release, Charlie Burggraf says, quote, "My family and I have decided that stepping away from the head coaching position at Team Minnesota is the right move for us at this time. I wish both the PWHL and especially Team Minnesota great success." So we don't really know exactly what that entails. You know, we see coaching changes at every level for any number of reasons, and we just don't have any more detail right now. But Natalie Darwitz, who is a very well-known name, especially on the women's hockey side, played for Team USA, feels confident that former NHLer Ken Klee, who has a proven record of success, will be able to bring that to the coaching staff in Minnesota.
And how do you think this affects the team being so close to the start of the regular season?
Well, I think any coaching change is going to have an impact. It's a matter of whether Klee is going to come in and kind of adapt to what the PWHL Minnesota team was already doing, or will there be a new vision? I guess what you could say from the player perspective, and maybe even the remainder of the coaching staff, is it was a pretty accelerated process just to get to puck drop on January 1st anyway. So I don't know what that means specifically for Minnesota, but I can see it both ways. On the one hand, maybe you do operate with a better system, with a better vision, and obviously you know that Klee is going to be available to see that through, at least for the foreseeable future. On the other hand, you know, if you have someone that comes in and does want to disrupt things several days before the puck drops, how long is it going to take Minnesota to adjust? So the good thing is that almost everyone on these rosters for the PWHL has played international hockey, high-level college hockey, and or professional hockey in some version of women's hockey. So I think they'll be able to manage.
And then the sponsorships for the PWHL have been coming in pretty regularly with some high-end equipment providers and all of that. And now they've added Air Canada to their roster, which it seems like will provide a more stable travel plan for this league.
So I'm not exactly sure what the Air Canada partnership is going to do. Now, yes, travel was mentioned, and it was mentioned in the press release that Air Canada will support the league and the 6 teams with their travel. So I'm not exactly sure what that will look like or what that means. Of course, as far as flights are concerned, you're beholden to whatever is available with Air Canada, unless we'll see charters. But we've got almost 30 years of the WNBA, and we haven't quite seen that yet. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what we're going to see there. And we also know in the collective bargaining agreement that actually flights are really only available outside of that 4-hour drive window. So potentially Air Canada can be supporting even some of the ground transit. What I did find interesting, though, in this release is that they leaned into, including with a particular little vignette on the marketing side. And Air Canada is also going to be hosting a local girls junior hockey team. for the inaugural games in Toronto or game in Toronto. There is also intellectual IP, intellectual rights and intellectual property that Air Canada will receive and have rights to as a part of this deal. So it looks like this will definitely be something that's going to help the PWHL on the marketing side, and that Air Canada will use the league in some of its promotions, but I'm not exactly sure what that means for travel or even, quite honestly, for direct funding and sponsorship into the league. We don't have the particulars of the financial situation, but to your point, Rachel, yes, having big sponsors come on board. We've seen some of these players in the women's sports space or in the women's hockey space, and everything that we hear about the PWHL, of course, is about the viability, the sustainability, and the professionalism overall. So to see these partners come back into the fold, a good sign, although we're not exactly sure what the partnership is. And, again, it might just be something that rolls out once we get a little bit more detail ahead of Monday.
I can picture now the PWHL players doing the in-flight safety video that goes on all of the Air Canada flights.
That would actually be kind of cool. It's kind of like I'm in Seattle right now, and when you land in the airport, you hear the voices of people like Sue Bird or Jen Mueller, who's one of the broadcasters for Root Sports. So maybe if we travel around North America, we'll hear Sarah Nurse and other players.
So, I mean, this league has come together pretty darn quickly. How ready do you feel they are for the start of this season, which is just a couple of days away?
We'll start with the easy answer, which is from the players' perspective. There's no doubt in my mind that these players will be ready. There's a good handful of players that have competed professionally and, again, internationally, as most recent, with World Championships, which was in Canada most recently, but then also the Isabel Cup Championships and the PWHPA. So from a competitive standpoint, I do think that the players will be ready. We've already seen a coaching change, and, systems can be difficult even for the most elite level athletes if the system doesn't work for them. So we'll also see how coaching fares. That being said, there are a few details like where to watch as someone who's in the United States that we don't know yet. Now, former Toronto Six player and 2023 Isabel Cup champion Soraya Tinker, we've talked about her before on the Women's Hockey Spotlight. She announced her retirement, but she this week also announced that she will be starting a new career as a hockey broadcaster. And so through her announcement, we know that TSN, Sportsnet, and CBC will be airing some of the PWHL games, including the first one where PWHL Toronto hosts PWHL New York. Soraya Tinker will be on that broadcast. But outside of that, we're not quite sure yet if U.S. viewers will be able to access fully those games on those 3 Canadian networks. And we don't know if anyone in the United States is going to be carrying those games outside of one team. And that, again, takes us to PWHL Minnesota. Through their partnership, we've seen with the Wild, they'll be, they, I believe, are practicing at Tria. They are using the same ice sheet as the Minnesota Wild as their home facility. And it looks like Bally Sports in Minnesota has regional rights and has really leaned into coverage for PWHL Minnesota and will be airing some of their games. But outside of that, we're not quite sure. We can maybe guess that Nesson in New England might carry the PWHL Boston games, and that leaves really the PWHL New York as the odd team out, which is kind of strange considering New York is a pretty big market.
Yeah, well, and MSG is right there.
Be interesting to see what options they come up with. Is it also possible some of the games that wouldn't be televised in the United States will be available via streaming?
So Stan Kasten, who serves on the board, who owns the PWHL, he has said that the expectation was always to have these broadcasted, but that at minimum, to your point, Gil, yes, there should be some streaming options. We've seen ESPN Plus be a streaming option in the past. We have seen YouTube, even Twitch, be a streaming option in the past for women's hockey. And we've also seen that, particularly on YouTube and Twitch to some extent, which is mostly known for gaming, but we've also seen games archived. Now, under the Premier Hockey Federation, they did not do a great job archiving games where you could then watch them back, whereas the National Women's Hockey League and even the Canadian Women's Hockey League did a better job of those things. So I do think we will see some type of streaming option. We just, before Monday, at least as of right now, it's already Friday, we don't know what that will look like. So they've got until the end of the workday, I guess, Gil, to figure it out.
Time is of the essence, but a very, very exciting time now for women's hockey, and a new year and a new era getting underway. Erica, thank you so much. Great to have you as always. And in 2 weeks, when you come back, we'll have some real games that have been played and we'll get an idea of where all the teams are at.
Absolutely. We'll have hopefully stats, results, and leaders, small sample size, but we'll definitely get into that and how much we think that is what we thought we'd see versus what actually is. I think that's what's going to be a lot of fun. There's so many Olympians, so many great players, but now they're coming together in one league. And for a lot of people, this has always been the vision. And so now we'll get to see it. And I'm very interested to see what data analysis people like Megan Chiker are going to come up with to give us a real rundown of what we're seeing on the ice.